Hi, and welcome to the NYC Love Kitchen podcast. My name is Walter Sotelo. I am the executive director, and we are glad that you have joined us and you are opening your mind and your heart to this wonderful podcast and with topics relating to community in New York City, food insecurity, nutrition, service, volunteerism, all these different topics that affect the life of a community. We believe that food is life being celebrated. And you probably would have a memory of one of the best meals you've enjoyed with the people that you love. And I'm here with a great friend, Principal Wendy Poveda from Pablo Duarte School here in New York City. Welcome.
Thank you. I am so humbled to be here and to get to spend the afternoon with you to get to talk about the things that we're both so passionate about.
Thank you so much for joining us. It is a rainy day in New York City and a little cold, but we're indoors and we're happy to be in here. One of the things that I really admire after I met you was the journey that I heard that you lived as a New Yorker. You are a Dominican American born here in Washington Heights. Tell us a little bit about your background as a woman, a leader, a educator, a principal, a innovator, creator. I mean, there's so many things you have in your background that it's amazing. I mean, obviously, wife, mom, all these different things. How do you do all of that?
I don't think about it much. I do, and I try to pour my whole heart into everything that I do. I am the first generation born in the United States. So my mom arrived in the United States as a 7-year-old.
Wow.
My grandma left all 4 of her babies in the Dominican Republic to earn a living here, make her journey here, and then bring over my grandfather and her 4 children.
Wait. Let's just rewind a little. Did I hear this correctly? You said your grandmother
Yes,
left her kids to come to America,
Yes.
not the grandfather.
that is correct.
That is
The
unreal. I don't
bravest
think I've
thing.
ever heard anyone in a journey like this.
Yes.
That is so great.
She is the reason why I'm here. So she single-handedly, I can't even imagine the sacrifice as a mom that she made. My uncle, her youngest, was about 9 months old at the time. So you can imagine just every sacrifice that she made to make it in New York
In
City
New York City of all
and
cities.
give me the opportunity, right? So she's coming from only having the opportunity to have a 3rd grade education. And so being in the United States, being in the community, the first thing was enrolled in school, 1st grade at Juan Pablo Duarte, like you said.
Really?
Yep. So
You were a student at the school.
I was. So back in I won't date
Don't say
myself
the
too
dates.
much.
Yeah, exactly. We're trying to keep
but the school,
everything pretty much as permitted
yeah,
for the ages right
of
now, right?
course. I was able to enroll at the school as a 1st grade student. And that's where I knew exactly what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
Wow.
I had the most amazing teacher, Miriam Feliciano. And I just knew I got this fortune of being in front of someone that I could emulate, right? I said, this is what I want to do. So I would go
A
home.
model, a mentor.
Absolutely. I would go home.
Wow.
I would teach my brothers. I would teach my Barbie dolls, like whatever, my stuffed animals. And so I knew that teaching was for me. And so in terms of my journey, I was the first person in my family to go to college. And I was fortunate to be able to do it at Columbia University.
Wow. Amazing.
I graduated from there and then really got into the stuck point of like, what do I want to do? Columbia doesn't have a major in education in the undergrad, right? So riding the subway, I saw this beautiful ad that said, hey, you remember your 1st grade teacher's name? Who's going to remember yours? And then it clicked, right? Miss Feliciano.
Okay.
And so I said, yes, I'm going to do. I applied. I got into the Teaching Fellows program. And then destiny is a thing. So I'm like, well, where in New York City am I going to work? And I go, there's an ad for Juan Pablo Duarte School.
Is this also on the subway?
Not on the subway.
That was
There's no,
on the plate or somewhere
right.
else?
So I'm into the program and now I have to get a placement, right? So I'm going to be a teacher, but where am I going to teach? And so there it is. I see this one, the only job I applied for, right? I said, that's the one. They have a vacancy at that time for 4 bilingual teachers. And I said, this is going to be it. I go in, I apply. I'm fortunate. I get a job.
That is so fantastic. What a story.
And I begin teaching
At the school
at the
you
school.
attended.
Yes. And I was there for about 12 years. Somewhere around year 5, my principal says to me, you could do this. And I said to myself, I said, I see your car late at night.
Yeah, you
It's in
stayed
the
here until
parking
like
lot.
7, 8 o'clock at
No,
night.
no, I just had a baby. I don't know. And so she said, no, you can do it. And so I go off on this journey, get credentialed, and I was able to always remain in the community. I was in a high school assistant principal. Shout out to the George Washington
Oh,
Education
you were at
Campus.
George Washington.
Yes, I
Oh,
was.
fantastic.
As an assistant principal. And then I got this wonderful opportunity. And when the job was offered to me, my boss said to me, he says, it's time for you to go home.
And he meant
Yeah, he
Pablo
meant
Duarte.
Juan Pablo Duarte. So sure enough, I said, yeah, I didn't even hesitate.
You didn't hesitate.
It was just
Natural.
yeah,
It was destined, like you said.
And I said, okay, there it is.
That is such a fantastic journey. It's interesting as they're listening to us. Maybe some of the listeners don't live in New York City. They don't understand the intricacies of a city, urban,
Yes.
landscape. The fact that to go to school is even a journey as a little kid. Compared to other cities, it's probably a lot easier. New York City, you're battling not only the traffic, the noise, the congestion, the fact that there's many people live in your house or in your apartment. As you grew up, Wendy, tell us a little bit about that journey as a student, in particular to how you were nourished, not just in your mind, but in your body by your relatives, your mom, your father, those people that were with you.
So the one thing I will say from my grandma, from my uncles, from my parents, a very strong commitment to education. Right? So education is the only thing that is a path to rise above your circumstances. So didn't have riches growing up, right? No inheritance. But I did have a work ethic, right? And so that's something that was very inculcated and instilled in me from my family. At the same time, you're living, right, in an environment where, Washington Heights in the late 80s and early 90s is a very tough community to be in at that time. And so you kind of grow up with all of those factors thinking about, so what is education and what does it have the power to unlock?
That's right.
And so for me, education is the reason why, right? Like I have been able to rise above my circumstances. And because of my grandmother and her journey and her dreams and my family's dreams, I really see my role as a school leader as a dream keeper, right?
Wow,
so for every single parent, I do serve a large community of people that were just like my mom, who either just got to the United States and are starting their journeys here. And they're the children of, every family sends to our school building their best child.
Yeah.
Right? And every single dream and every single sacrifice. And so our role is to figure out, so how do we support them so that all those dreams can come true?
As I'm listening to you, I'm reminded of Ellis Island, and I think that the school is like a Ellis Island for so many of the people that have come to this country. I recall myself coming into this country and going to the public school and saying, this is a community where I can belong, and it's evident by what you are sharing that you are the product of that community, of the school. Tell us a little bit about the people in the school. How many students and families are in your school? And something interesting, how is it that you started this initiative that you call Juan Pablo Duarte Cares Initiative? Tell us a little bit about that.
So I am a firm believer that I am called to serve, and I have to serve those who have come to my door. Right? And so as a first year principal, one of the things that I started noticing very quickly, I would stand outside. I love personal treatment, right? So I want every student to be known, to be greeted by their name seen. And warmly, right? So I would stand outside and I noticed this student has been out for like 1 or 2 days. So I go over to the student and I say, hey, we missed you. We missed you yesterday. We missed you the day before that. What happened? And the one thing they would say was, oh, my clothes were dirty. I'd have a clean uniform, so I couldn't come to school. And so in my mind, I'm thinking myself, that's something that I think I can work to solve. And so we have the oldest building in all of District 6.
Really?
Built in 1905.
Wow.
Okay, that was a time when schools were thought of and designed differently. And so I go running to my custodian's office and I knock on his door and I say, hey, I just need you to get me to yes. And he goes, what? I said, just get me to yes. I said, I'm going to ask you for something that might be a little impossible, but I believe in you. And so he goes, what is this doing?
Yeah.
I could see it in his face. And I say, I need a space that has a water line. Because here's what I'm thinking. I need to get a laundry set up here. I need to wash the kids' clothes. We need to figure this out.
Yeah.
And inquiring with some of my staff, they're like, oh, yeah, no, I take clothes home to wash for some kids. And I'm like, oh, my staff is doing this. I was like, there's got to be a way. So with the support of community organizations, the Catholic Charities actually helped us out.
Yes.
So I happen to have worked for Alianza as a
Alianza Dominicana.
That's right. Okay. So as a
shout out to them. They're great in our neighborhood. Fantastic.
So they gave me some of my first opportunities, and there was a tutor for them. So I called up Eddie, and I'm like, Eddie, come. And Eddie was like, we've got this. And they, with their partnership, they helped us acquire the washer and the dryer.
That's so fantastic.
And so then it's okay, great. So we're going to have this initiative, and it's going to be JPD Cares, and we're going to do this with dignity. And I really had all the Pinterest of the laundry room that I wish I had at home. And I was like, we're going to make it in the school.
Oh, fantastic.
And it's been great.
That is so good.
Just fantastic.
So clean clothes for the children. So the parents come in or the children bring in the clothes? How do they work?
Anyway, so parents have access to the laundry room.
Okay.
We maintain it fully stocked. I tell them all you have to bring. The only thing we don't provide is the dirty clothes.
That sounds amazing. I mean, that should be like, bring your dirty clothes. That's almost like a message to share with everybody. Bring your dirty clothes. We'll help you. We'll clean it up.
Yep. Because that's, it's an expense, right?
Yes.
So many of our families, especially impacted by the pandemic, I would say, are housing insecure.
That's right.
So now, pre-pandemic was a challenge. Now, in post-pandemic, right? It's still a challenge.
It is.
And so that's the number one thing. If you can offer our kiddos and their families clean clothes, then we're on the path.
For those that are listening outside of New York City and maybe even some of the neighborhoods outside of those that have the laundry in their apartments, it's a journey to be able to take your clothes out of your apartment, maybe even walk down, drag it or carry it or roll it to a laundromat where you will find a number of different people that maybe are already stressed. You leave your clothes and sometimes the machine don't work. They take your money. And it takes 2-3 hours if you're doing laundry for 3 to 4 people in your family.
It could be like a day activity.
It is a day activity. Right? I particularly, I do not like doing laundry. That's one thing I negotiated with my wife. I said, please do the laundry. I do not like laundry. It was such a stress. I felt like it was a waste of time. I was the kind of kid that would lay out his clothes at night to be able to not have to wake up so early, get dressed, and I will wear my clothes like 2 to 3 times. I would calculate different days, try to figure it out. You also mentioned that in this project that you have, Juan Pablo Duarte Initiatives, on the opposite side, you started also a pantry.
Yeah, so let's
And I'm very interested in hearing about that. Let's talk about that a little bit.
So I'm going to give you the whole history with the pantry.
Yes.
So I serve students, right? When we went remote, it really gave me time, maybe even all of us, to check our privilege. I have a position where I was able to pivot to remote. I was able to work from home. And for so many of our families, that wasn't an option. So if you are, working in a salon or in any service industry, those early days were difficult.
They were difficult. They were devastating. They lost jobs, they lost income, they lost income.
And so now you take that and maybe you don't have health care and you're sick that's going to be a huge stressor on the household. And so when we would do daily check-ins with our students just to see how they were doing, our families would say, no, it's getting rough, this is the situation, we're not working, family's sick. And so that's when I would call Domingo, which you met, our urban arts CBO. I said, Domingo, we got to do something. What do we do? And Domingo said, okay, let's see if we begin to deliver food to homes. And so that's what we would do. So we would sort of think about, well, what would a family need in a week? What are some key staples? And we would do these home deliveries of food. And it was so impactful for our families because kids who aren't eating and don't have their basic needs aren't going to learn. So it doesn't matter if the internet is working and the teacher's got this fantastic lesson through Zoom, or Google Meet. It's not going to land, if you're hungry. So coming out of that was a big okay, this is going to be a bigger need coming down. And so I kind of started thinking about, how do I align my resources? Or the school's resources, right? How do I partner with some community organizations? And so I knocked on Catholic Charities doors again, and I'm like, hey, I have this idea. I want to start this pantry. And so they were like, okay. So they set us up with our first setup. And then I was like, okay, well, this is going to be great, but how do you sustain this? And in my vision, pantry staples are great, but I also want the most nutritious foods in our students' hands, right? So fresh fruits and vegetables, and I want to push this healthy foods campaign. And so how do I do this? And so I start, asking around, and I am having this conversation with my superintendent. Shout out to Manny Ramirez, and he's like, your colleague across the street is working with an organization called the Love Kitchen. And so I run across the street, and I'm like, what are you doing? And we're seeing the process, the delivery of the stuff. And I was like,
You're watching.
I'm watching
when the NYC Love Kitchen is delivering the groceries to the school across your school. So your school is an elementary school.
Elementary school, right.
And they are a middle school.
Right.
And you're watching that we as an organization is supplying their food, supplemental groceries. And you're like, how did you do this?
So I was like, how do I got to figure this out, right? Because now, I got the location. I was able to scrape together for a refrigerator, right? So I was like, it's set up. I got some shelving, right? And so I was like, begging for the number. So you got to talk to Walter. All right, I'm going to talk to Walter. So I'm begging, get the phone call. We go back and forth on emails. And I'm literally well, now it's public, right? But I'm in a principal's meeting, right, with the boss. And, there's some expectations. Keep your cell phone off and things like that. But it's Walter calling.
So no, is that when I called?
So I run out, and I can't let anybody go. So I run outside, right, to the school where I can get outside of the place we were in, where I could get service. Middle of winter, no coat on. And I'm like, you've got to come to the school, Walter. You've got to come, please. And you're like, okay, I'll go. And so you were able to make to the store. That's right. Right. And you were able to go into the
pantry. I saw it.
You saw the laundry room.
Yes.
And I was explaining, that's JPB Cares, is thinking about what are the obstacles our students are facing to getting an education, and then how does the school, right, become the source, right, of breaking down those barriers. That's right. What's within my control, or I would say even influence. What can I influence to mitigate some of this, right? And then other things, there are pantries in the community, right? Yeah. But if you're working 12 hours a day and you can't make the line at 12 noon or whenever the pantry is happening, then it is not working for you. Right? Yes. So then I started thinking, so then how do we set this up? And I said, you do this at dismissal. So they're going to come get their child.
They're going to pick them up.
And then you get your child and you get dinner. Yeah. And my gosh, what a game changer that has been.
Oh, wow. I have to say that you're inspiring not only me, but so many people, so many women and men to do what you just said. I love the phrase that you examined your privileges during the time of pandemic. You pivoted. You said, okay, what do I do that others don't have? And it's such a important moment to pause, to know that we've been giving maybe blessings or in excess things that are not just for us, and that they're going to pass through our hands. And you have been able to allow that to take place in your school with 185 students, families. And I got to tell you, I'm even more committed now to giving you as much as we can get food for you, because listen, we might be devising an idea. I think we have two ideation type of personalities here, but what would it look like if District 6 of the public schools had the resources to be able to actually get the groceries, supplemental groceries to the families, and maybe buy back some time from doing laundry, from going grocery shopping in some of the days, not obviously all 7 days, but maybe if you could shave or save some time. We only get 24 hours, and if you're working 12 to 14, 1 hour as you go to pick up your child or you're coming into the school, you get the groceries to be able to have for the next 3 days of your family. That's just a fantastic. It's a fitting solution, and I hope that we can work something even more for your school and for others. As you think of the future of your school, as you think of the interaction, uh, how would you invite people that are maybe listening to this podcast to get involved, in particular to our context in New York City, in Washington Heights, with migrants, asylum seekers? I love what you said, Wendy, that you are here to serve those that are coming. And I think this is the heart stand, the positioning of the mind. When people come to our city, we're not the ones determining whether we close the border or not. I mean, we could all vote for whoever we feel that is the person is going to do what we think is going to do, right? This is democracy. But in reality, when we have all these people coming, which we've had in New York City since last year, why are we not loving our neighbor? Why are we not caring for people? And I think sometimes that love is embodied in service. Love humbles you to the point where your gifts and your talents and your accolades no longer are seen as arrogance, but they're seen as common love for another. They're now used for the common good of humanity. So how would you engage people, whether it's a student, as you mentioned a few community-based organizations, Catholic Charities, Alianza Dominicana. How are you doing all of this? How are you getting the word out? Because you said you ran out. You like to run. I have to say that she likes to run. Ran out of the school to go across the street, and then you ran out of the principal's meeting to go answer the phone. So where are you running now?
I will run for my children.
You will run for your children.
My children. So I just keep thinking about, we are in New York City, right? And so when I think of that, I believe there's just this humanity, right? This collective responsibility. So why should a child be hungry? Right? And so children who are hungry don't learn.
That's right.
That's the bottom line. And so one thing that I wanted to highlight was that when you're talking about impact, I want to share with you some data points, right?
Okay.
Because I think these are things that are really motivating to anybody who's thinking about what this means for the community, what this means for families, what this means for like even our future as a society.
That's right.
So when we met, 2 years ago, we were at 46% chronic absenteeism, right? Which is a problem that we're having.
That's many schools.
Many schools, yes. Right? Especially post-pandemic, right? Chronic absenteeism means a student is out 18 plus days per year, right? So their attendance is below 90%.
And you said it's 46%.
46. So that if you think about
it, in elementary only, or throughout all the different grades in the city?
So in my school, I'm giving you
just
instant, right? So in my school, in the 21-22 school year, our chronic absenteeism was 46%. That means half of our students missed a month or more of school. So we're, that's going to impact learning. That's going to impact mental health. That's going to impact so many different factors. So when I go and I think, okay, what are we going to start doing? So we got to fix this. And so last year we opened the pantry in March. We partnered with you in March. We opened the pantry in January. And laundry is going, things are going, enrollment is boosting. And all the while we were able to lower chronic absenteeism to 23%. Right?
Wow, that's substantial.
So that's a 50% decrease. But that's not okay, right? That's not okay, right? It's ways to go. If you look at our numbers today, if you take a snapshot today, our chronic absenteeism is at 3%.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yes. And we still have kids that are at risk that we're working with to make sure that they don't get in there. But guess which is the highest attendance day?
The day that you do laundry?
No, because they can do
They do
laundry
laundry?
any day.
Any day.
Yes,
The day that the food comes to them.
absolutely.
Wow.
That is a trend across our school, right? So what does it communicate, right? Like when you meet the needs of the family, right? Because we don't
Yes.
just educate the child that's sitting in the classroom. That child comes with his village or her village,
That
right? So
is
we
true.
educate it's the whole child.
The whole child.
So when we are able to provide for a need for that child, for that family, beautiful things are happening. We've pushed a healthy school initiatives. We're a wellness in the schools,
Yes.
flagship school. And so one of the things that we push is just healthy food. So like really making sure that snacks during lunchtime are healthy snacks. So the kids are very excited to show me when they bring their strawberries and their fruits, and so great things are happening, right? Because that's and in turn, right, what's happening there in school more.
Yeah.
So academically, the growth is skyrocketing, right? So our kids are making accelerated growth right now when it comes to their academics. So things are starting to come together because we're thinking like, okay, so you're investing in making sure that the child doesn't go hungry. You're making sure that the needs are met. And so when it comes to time to being in school,
they are actually
they're
learning.
going to be, right, because now that stressor
is
removed it.
That's right. That's right. It's so interesting that as we are living in a busy city, the collaboration and the partnerships with other institutions, community organizations in a particular neighborhood is so essential to the survival and hopefully to the point where they can thrive in life. And that's our desire. Our mission is really to feed and mend lives with the bread of life. We want to be able to feed, which is the part of the body, but mending involves the soul, involves the spirit, involves what we call the holistic part of the human, which if I am not eating healthy, my body's not going to feel good. I remember, sometimes eating some of the food, I would get drowsy and I'm trying to figure it out. And I'm like, why am I getting drowsy, falling asleep? But if I eat healthy, I don't feel that. I feel like I have energy throughout the day. I wish I would have met you when I was younger in my school years. I mean, obviously would have been younger, but in the sense of like you would have been my principal. You need to replicate yourself. And I'm sure you're doing this. You have to have someone that you're mentoring because you have such a passion and a drive for vision. And the transition as you went into this public school, which has since 1905, has been educating children in New York City. And many of them were migrants. And I don't know if you know, the food pantries, food banks started because of the Great Depression, when about a quarter of the United States residents had lost their jobs and unemployment was massive. And the policymakers decided that they were going to be able to bring in food to kind of create barns in case of a famine, which we don't hear the word famine, but the famine is converted into food insecurity. It's almost as if the community and the people living in the neighborhoods are struggling with one problem, two problems, three problems, four problems, and they don't know which one to address at a time. As you address us and you tell us about your journey and the beautiful ecosystem that you have been creating, obviously with your staff, they have to be fantastic to
I
live.
have the most amazing team of teachers ever. We call ourselves the little school with the big heart.
That's great.
But really, they are the heartbeat, right? Because they are doing the impossible tasks. I said, I said every now and then I'll go to them and I say, guys, let's go back to that John F. Kennedy quote. So, when he said, we choose to go to the moon, not because it's easy, but because it's hard. And I said, yeah, so we choose to do this work, not because it's easy, but because it's hard. But it really is, it's really about transforming lives.
It is about transforming.
So that is our mission, right? So we partner with families and the community to transform lives.
That's right.
And I am an example of that, right?
Yeah.
Like 2 generations ago, my grandmother got a 3rd grade education. Fast forward to now, I have had the fortune to be able to have an education, and that's something that every one of our students needs to have access to. No, not only has the potential to do it, but like that's their right.
That's their right. Yeah. So as we conclude our conversation, I always want to say thank you for joining us. Take a moment and just address the audience. If you could encourage the private sector, so corporations, businesses, you mentioned obviously like laundry, Someone makes those washing machines and dryers, but even food, as you mentioned, art is another. What would you tell the private sector of corporations and even maybe some of our community members, people that live in Washington Heights, Inwood? How would you call them to engage with us? What would you say to them if you could just
Supporting organizations like the Love Kitchen, organizations that are giving back to the community, like that is the thing to do, because it's going right back into the community, right? So it's going into the students, to the schools, to support lifting the next generation, and that is an investment that's worth it.
Thank you so much, Wendy, for being here with us and just giving your time and more importantly, giving your life to New York, to the families that you are loving and caring for. I know that there's a great horizon of opportunities. Anytime you have an idea, please let me know. Call me, text me, do. I love to be able to endeavor to build ideas that are going to help not only our time, our present, but is going to transform our future. I hope you enjoyed our conversation here at the NYC Love Kitchen podcast. If you've enjoyed it, please follow us on our social media channels and visit us on our website at nyclovekitchen.com. Thank you so much.